Hey, welcome to the Draft Academy. My name is Mike, and in this video, I'm going to be giving you an overview of software testing. So we're going to look at what software tests are, why we test, the different types of tests, and then at the end, I'm going to give you a demo of test-driven development. But first, let's start with a joke. Writing tests is like flossing. Everybody agrees it's good, but most of us only do it right before something important breaks. And did you know that the first computer bug was a real moth that was found in the Harvard Mark II computer? So literally like an actual physical bug flew into the computer, and that's where we get the term bug from. So why do we test? The main reasons are for confidence, refactoring, and to eliminate bugs. So one of the things with code bases is as you add more and more code to them over time, how do you know that the new code that you're adding, or if you were refactoring the code, like changing it to make it cleaner, how do you know it's not breaking things that were already there in the code base? Like if I submit a piece of code to a code base, how do I know it's not breaking anything from the past? And a lot of times that's where issues come in with legacy systems, is that they don't write tests. And so whenever they add things, they're not sure if something broke, and then it's almost impossible to find what went wrong because you don't have a way of kind of identifying, okay, this thing broke and this thing is still working. So that's basically why we do tests, is to have confidence for adding new code and refactoring existing code. And there's two main types of tests that you'll find out in the wild. One is a unit test and the other is an integration test. Unit tests are generally small tests that can be run very quickly, and they tend to test a single unit of code like a function or a class. So if you look over here, we have this little test for capitalize function, and this is the one that we're actually going to be writing together at the end of the video. But it tests a single function called capitalize, and it checks all sorts of different scenarios with that one function, but it doesn't integrate with other functions. Whereas over here in our integration test, we're integrating our shopping cart total. You can see here that we calculate the total of the shopping cart, and then we apply the tax to it. Now, those are two complicated operations that we're combining together, so we would call that an integration test. The basic structure of a test follows the 3 A's: arrange, act, and assert. So here, once again, for the capitalize method, we have capitalize as the first letter. You can see that we arrange a variable, so we create something called input, and then we act on that input where we capitalize it, and then down here we assert that it actually got capitalized. So from here we have the lowercase, and then here it's actually capitalized, and that's the 3-step process: arrange, act, assert. And that's generally what you want to do for all of your tests, whether they're unit tests or integration tests. Now let's talk about performance and stress testing. We got a little meme here. Did you run the stress test? Yes. And what did it break? Everything. These tend to be really common if you've ever played like online games, or a company will release a massive video game and then all the players come in and they kind of stress test it and they performance test it, and that's where you can kind of work out a lot of the bugs. So a performance test tends to use time. You can see here in this little performance test, we're filling this words array with 100,000 words, and then we're using performance.now, which is like a JavaScript function, and we're basically timing to see how long it takes to run this function 100,000 times. So with certain functionality, especially if you're using like different algorithms, you want to be able to test to make sure that, sometimes if you run something 10,000 times, it runs pretty quickly, but then you up it to 100,000 and then you start to run into some issues. So that's where performance and stress testing can come in. And a lot of times these tests are difficult to write because it's hard to simulate so much performance. And finally, we're going to talk about test-driven development, and I'm actually going to be giving you a quick demo of this. But in test-driven development, we're writing the tests as we develop the code. And you'll see how we do this in a second, but it follows the red-green refactor cycle. So what we do is we write a test, the test is failing, and then we write just enough code for the test to pass, and then we refactor everything so it looks nice. So now we're going to go over to the code base and we're going to do a quick demo. So here I have a simple little setup. I have this little use test function, and what this is going to allow us to do is write some tests, and the results will show up over here on the browser. So we're going to go ahead and write that capitalized test. And generally with these tests, you'll have something like a little testing library. In this case, it's just called use tests. And what we'll say here is it and capitalizes the first letter. So that's the functionality that we want to look for in this function, right? Now we're going to do arrange, act, and assert. So I'm going to create a variable here. We're going to call it word. I'm going to set it equal to hello. So we're arranging for the test. Now we're going to act on that test, and we're going to say capitalized word is equal to, and we're going to call the capitalize function. Now we haven't written this yet, so this test is actually going to fail, but this is how you do test-driven development, is we first write a failing test. So we're going to capitalize word, and then I'm going to assert that the word, or that the capitalized word is equal to hello. So we're arranging, we're acting, and then we're asserting. So now we're going to save, and we're going to see what kind of error we get. So first error we get is a reference error. It says capitalize is not defined. Now you might think, why did we write this test when we didn't even write the capitalize function yet? But this is how test-driven development works. So we write the failing test, and then I'll come up here and I'll say capitalize. So we'll actually write the function, and then this is going to take a string, and then I'm going to save this. So now we're not getting the reference error anymore. We're just getting this fail. So capitalized word is not equal to hello because we're not returning anything. So now what we'll do is we'll actually create the capitalized functionality. So we can return string 0.to uppercase plus string.slice 1. And what this is going to do is it's going to capitalize that first letter, and then it'll append it to the rest of the string. And now we should have a passing test. So now capitalized word is equal to hello. So you can see how we wrote the failing test, and then we added just enough functionality to make it work. What we can do now is write another failing test. A lot of times with these unit tests, we want to check for edge cases. So an edge case would be like if instead of passing a word, I just passed null. So we could say it returns empty string when passed null. And this is an edge case because we probably wouldn't expect the user to enter in null, but if they do, we want to be able to handle it. So once again, we're going to arrange. So I'll say the word is equal to null, and then we're going to act. Capitalized word is equal to capitalize, and then we're going to pass in the word. And then finally, we're going to assert, and we'll say capitalized word, and we would just want it to be equal to an empty string. So if they pass null, then we would get the empty string. Now, once again, we're going to get this failing test. So it said cannot read property of null, reading 0. So it was trying to do this operation with null. So what we'll do here is we'll just check to see if the string is equal to null, return an empty string. And there we go. So then we have our second passing test. Now, another thing we might want to do would be to check just some other situations. So we could say it, now these might not be failing, but we might want to add these tests just to make sure that they work. We could say it returns capitalized word when already capitalized. And so now, once again, we're going to arrange, act, and assert. And I'm just going to copy some of these. So in this case, the word is already going to be capitalized, and we just want to make sure that it still returns that capitalized word. So once again, this test, it already passed, but it's good to have it in there because it makes sure that this function is doing what it needs to do. And with these unit tests, and that's what these are unit tests, you can have as many of these little kind of edge cases or little tests as you want, and generally that's a good idea because unit tests tend to run pretty quickly. But otherwise, that's a nice little short demo of test-driven development. Hopefully you can see how it basically works. If you've enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe, and otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.